Welcome to another episode of the Challenging the Spin podcast, and a very happy New Year's and a welcome into the year of 2026. This episode is going to be part one of three of the start of a small series of conversations that I actually recorded way back in 2024 that have never been released, that I am now releasing to celebrate the beginning of 2026. And no other person is better to start this series than Allison Hudson, also known as Ariel Allison Dances on social media. Allison is a pole champion and coach with extensive background as a pole dance competitor, choreographer and instructor, who was also featured in the Netflix documentary Strip Down, Rise Up. This episode was really particularly meaningful to me as we have an open and honest conversation about not just her journey in pole, but how that has developed her Christian faith and what it means to hold both of those identities in a space that's often very misunderstood. So this is a really thoughtful and powerful discussion around belief, faith, the pole community and challenging assumptions, and I'm really proud to share it with you to begin our year of 2026. So let's get into it. Thank you, Allison, for joining us on the Challenging the Spin podcast. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
It's great to be with you.
So firstly, I'd just like you to tell us a little bit of background about yourself and sort of your journey with how you got involved in pole.
Okay, so I began pole about 14 years ago. I was never a dancer. I was a cheerleader growing up, but I was never a dancer. And I discovered pole, it just kind of landed in my lap through a personal trainer. So I had had a baby, I gained a lot of weight. I was looking for a weight loss solution, so I hired a personal trainer. And she was a pole dancer and introduced me to this amazing industry, and it's changed my life.
Yeah, love it, love it. And I loved obviously we'll talk a little bit about Strip Down Rise Up, which was sort of a big, I'm sure, personal journey for you as well with pole dance. In the documentary, of course, you talk about being a Christian and sort of your personal faith and that involvement in pole dance. Did your sort of initial faith or Christianity that you have sort of shape your initial perception of pole dance?
Yes, absolutely, it did. My sister was a stripper when I was growing up. She's a couple years older than me, and she got into the stripper world and got into a lot of trouble there. She ended up finding drugs and alcohol and a lot of really bad behaviors. It kind of took her in a lot of wrong and bad directions. So growing up, I already had this understanding that this stripper world, the only world that I knew of through my sister, was not a good thing. When I first discovered pole, when my trainer told me about it, I said, I don't know if I can do that because I just had this really negative connotation with it. So she mentioned and actually comforted me and said, "Oh, I know what you're thinking, and that's not what this is like. It's a totally different thing." And so I said, "Well, I don't understand anything other than what I've seen on the bad things." And so she's like, "Well, I'll help you and I'll show you." So if it wasn't for her, to be honest, I don't think I would have ever gone near a pole, but I trusted her, and the way that she presented it to me was in a way that I didn't need to worry. So that helped, I think, from the Christian perspective as well. The whole stripper world wasn't a good thing either, not just from me witnessing it through my sister and what it did to her life, but also just from a Christian perspective, the whole world was definitely just a stripper world. And it was not praised or anything that would be smiled or looked well upon. So if I was to say, "Oh yeah, I'm a stripper at church," I don't think that would go over very well. So yeah, I think there's definitely this negative stigma based upon it, whether you see what it does from a drug or a sister perspective, but even just from a Christian religious perspective, it's not very favored.
Did you then come across a lot of criticisms or challenges when you started initially doing it?
I did. The hardest thing was with my husband. So when I first started taking classes, he didn't want me to tell anyone. So he knew I was dancing because I was going to do it for me, and I knew it was fun and I enjoyed it and I knew there was nothing wrong with it. But I couldn't get him to agree with me on that. In a way, he was allowing me to take classes, only because there's nothing that he could have done to stop me. Like I was going to take them no matter what. So the big thing was don't tell anyone. I know you're doing it, but don't tell anyone that you're doing it. So for a long time, I was taking classes and absolutely loved it. Was having the time of my life and making amazing friends. And I loved the benefits of it and all the ways that it made me feel. But yet I had to stay in sort of a box. So when people would ask me, what's new or what are you into or what are you doing, I just couldn't say anything. So it was very much like limited in the only people I could talk about pole with were my pole friends. And so whether it was at work or at church or in social gatherings, I was supposed to be very hush hush about it. That was really hard for me in the beginning. And then when I started coming out and I started telling people about pole, I definitely got the looks and the smirks and the judgments just from a body language perspective that, oh, you're a stripper or you're one of those people, or what are you going to do with this thing you got going on? Are you going to pick up a side hustle? Or can you show me your moves? If it was a male, it'd be like, oh, I want to see you dance on a pole. I got a lot of that when I did start coming out and start telling people what I was doing.
I think this conversation is perfect for this podcast because it's showing so many different individuals and their reactions and their misconceptions that they have with pole dance. And that's why I think it's so important to have these conversations to show the versatility of it as well and the different types and how pole is different for everyone. We've seen in the documentary as well, and you talked a little bit about it there when you started to tell people or show people your pole dance. How did sort of your social media get impacted, and really how did your faith maybe impact how you posted on social media?
It's interesting you bring that up because that was another thing. I wasn't allowed to have social media. Like my husband was like, you can't have a social media account and you cannot post yourself posing or wearing pole clothes, which was really hard for me. Even when I was teaching, like he was allowing me to teach and I was teaching classes, but I would have to tell my students, like, I can't be in your shots. So if you're going to take a photo or a video of anything that I might be spotting you, for example, and I'm in the video, you cannot post that. I had all kinds of students as well as, coworkers who had social media representation, had accounts, had it all public and very much out there. And for many, many years, I was not allowed to have one. And I allowed that form of control in my life for a very long time. So I would say at least for the first 8 years of my pole dancing life and career, because I was teaching for about 6 of those years, I wasn't actually allowed to have an account. I remember having conversations with people and they'd be like, wait, where do you teach? Wait, where are you at? And they're like, why don't I know about you? And I kept saying, oh, well, I'm not allowed to have a social media presence. And I still look back and remember their faces and think like, I didn't realize it at the time, but I think they were thinking in their minds, that poor girl, she's this amazingly talented dancer and is able to, be an adult and do this for fun, but yet she's being controlled by a male dominated guy and isn't allowing her to have the freedom. And so I remember those faces, but at the time I was telling myself, well, at least I can take classes. Well, at least I can teach. Well, at least I can help others. And somehow or in a way, I was able to manage my life thinking, well, at least I can do these things because I'm a positive person. I'm a very optimistic person. I don't think of things in a negative light. I think of things in an optimistic light. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, at least I can do this and that. But the people's responses were like, you poor girl. And it took me many years to come around and think, why am I allowing this person, even though this is my husband, this should be the person that supports me and lets me blossom and wants to see me grow and wants to see me succeed. Instead, there was just this expectation of this needs to be kept in the dark and no one can see it because it's a bad thing. And so it took me many years to have a social media presence. And that's when I just decided, like, this is crazy. Like, I need to have a social media account. And if that means that my husband and I are not going to stay married, then I'm fine with that. I mean, I got to a point thinking, do I really want to be married to a man who is this controlling? And I got to a point saying, I'm willing to lose this if this means that I get freedom. And my mind turned, I changed, I matured, I grew, I evolved. I got to a point where I thought it was important enough for me that I had that freedom. And that's when I started to have a social media account.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible story. I mean, even you talking about how you could see in people's faces their reaction, but you yourself, it took you years to sort of address it. What really was the moment that you were like, I'm not doing this anymore? What was there a specific moment, or do you think it was sort of a gradual process?
I do think it was a gradual process. I remember getting to a point where I saw almost every other instructor. I kind of looked around and I saw all these other instructors who were teaching at all the same spaces that I was. And there were two in particular who were very strong Christians. And I
Mhm.
just looked around and I thought, I'm the only one that doesn't have an account. I'm the only one among all the people that I know and all the people that I train with who is not allowed. And I just remember thinking, why am I not allowed?
Yeah.
And I do remember there was a moment that I was in the shower actually, and I was really mad at God. And I was like, God, why would you put me with this person? Why would you give me this amazing ability and this amazing gift and this amazing talent and something I'm so passionate about? And then why would you put me with this guy who I'm sure that I was destined to be married to? Or I was like, this is my mate. This is my soulmate. We met in college. We fell in love. We have kids together. Why would you do this to me? Why would you put me in this circumstance where this is the guy I'm married to, and these are the gifts you've given me? And in that moment, I heard God say, I'm not the one. I'm not the one to be mad about. I'm not the one to be mad at. It's not me putting you in that box. I gave you that husband and I gave you those amazing gifts, but I'm not the one that's restricting your access. He is. And it was this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I remember just saying, God, I am so sorry for being so mad at you because I thought it was his fault. I thought he did this to me. I don't know if it's like a victim thing or you don't want to blame the person you love. I don't know what it was, but I was just not happy in that moment. And I was super mad at him, at God. And then I was like, wait, I'm being mad at the wrong person. I'm allowing this. I am at fault. I'm allowing myself to be put in a box. I'm allowing my husband to tell me what I can and cannot do and to take away freedoms.
Mhm.
I'm the one that's at fault. I should be mad at myself. I mean, it was that like aha moment. So looking around, seeing all these other people with freedom, being mad at God, realizing that it's not God's fault. I have to take responsibility and I want to be out of the box. I want to be out of the cage. Right. So then I was like, I know 100% I meant to be out of this box and I'm going to do it. And I was like, this is scary, but I'm going to do it. So I do remember that.
No, and we could almost sort of see that journey that you're describing on the documentary. You know, at the beginning, sort of snippet, you're talking about sort of you're still having the struggle and you're debating it and toiling with it. And then sort of your last moment is like the big aha moment where you're like, this is my body. I'm still, you know, a Christian and it doesn't diminish that anything I'm doing in my faith. So it was really lovely to see that and for us to watch that as well as you were going through it. Was that a healing process for you, actually, you know, talking to the documentary makers and watching it back as well?
It was. And I didn't know at the time or any part of my journey why I was going through what I was going through, but I just knew in 100% that God had a reason. And I think when I was able to tell my story to the filmmaker, Michelle, and everyone, I felt like God was using my story in a way that was helping and empowering other people. And
Mhm.
I just remember like saying, okay, God, you're in control here. And I know that you don't waste anything. I know you can use all circumstances for your glory. I know you can do all things for good. And so I'm like, if I had to go through this whole journey that I went on to help one person, I remember saying, like, even if it just helps one person, one woman, one girl in the same circumstance as me, I'm going to tell my story for that person because it did. It was a hard journey for me. And I felt like I had to tell it. And it was healing in a way that I thought, God's going to use this. I don't know how, but I need to be truthful and I need to be honest and I need to share this. And somehow or another, God will use it. I just know that.
Yeah.
So that did help in a healing process way.
Definitely.
And I must say that Michelle was after me for a really long time to tell my story because she had heard about my story from a lot of people. And
Hmm.
for the longest time, I was like, no, I'm not going to tell my story. It's too much. It's too much. It's going to hurt my family. It's going to hurt my image. It's going to hurt my husband. It's going to I'm not doing it. And
Hmm.
it wasn't until I got this aha that I was like, I have to tell my story. I am going to call her and I'm going to tell her that if she still wants to tell my story, I'm willing to tell it. But it was hard for me, like really, really hard for me.
I mean, it's so incredible that you did tell that story because there's so many women and men that are relating to your story. And even I told you at the start before we started recording, I, as a young girl, a young Christian girl that also pole dances, was so encouraged to see you telling this audience that, you know, you can be a Christian and you can pole dance and that relationship can happen. It doesn't, you shouldn't have to sacrifice one for the other. So I really loved watching it myself and was so glad that you were telling your story.
Why not treat yourself and start the year of 2026 off well with buying yourself some new pole and aerial clothing with our sponsors, Dragonfly. Dragonfly is a brand with a dragonfly symbol that combines the beauty of sports with perfect clothing. Dragonfly lives for quality sportswear and maximum exercise experience with a main focus on pole dance and hot yoga. Dragonfly is clothing that gives freedom of movement, it's functional, it's durable, and of course it looks good too. Today, it supplies sportswear to more than 80 countries worldwide and is one of the top market leaders in sportswear for pole dance and aerial hoop. So treat yourself this 2026 to some new pole and aerial clothing and click the link in the bio to shop now. Thank you so much to Dragonfly for sponsoring this podcast.
So yeah, so as we were talking there, you know, the documentary, you went through this personal journey that was so incredible to see. Did then concluding that documentary and watching it back, did that strengthen your personal growth and also your relationship with God? Do you feel now you have a deeper relationship with Him?
100%. Absolutely. I mean, I think the documentary was so well done. I'm happy and privileged to have been a part of it. I think that a lot of young women should watch it. I think that even older women should watch it, honestly. Like, it's just such a women empowerment movie. And they've got some beautiful stories in there of other women who have been changed by pole dance. And we all have a different journey. We all have a different experience and we all have a different story of how pole dance has changed our lives for the best. And when I watch it and when I tell people about it, I'm privileged to be a part of it. I think it was a beautiful story. I really do. As far as my relationship with God, I think that it just confirms the fact to me that God always has plans for our lives, that we might not understand what we're going through or why we're going through what we're going through. We don't know. But if we continue walking in the ways that He has for us, no matter how many mistakes we make or paths we go on that are not leading to His will, He can still pull us back onto His journey, or He can use whatever experience that we go through. And then when you trust in Him, when you take almost this leap of faith, even when things don't seem to make sense around you, if you know God is directing you along that path, then you have to know that it's going to be beautiful. Like whatever happens, it's going to be so mind-boggling. It's going to be like something you didn't even see coming, and you had no idea that God could do something so beautiful. I just feel like for me, when I trusted Him, heard his voice, continued walking, and even pushed past moments of discomfort or wait a minute, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm so scared. I'm so afraid. When I'm like, nope, I know 100%, 100% God wants me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you just keep walking forward and you can't care about what other people are going to think or what they're going to say or how you're going to be perceived when you get in that moment and you just say, yes, God, He is just so incredible in what He can do with you and with your life. And all I can say is it's like a rainbow. You know, you look up and you see this rainbow and you're just like, what in the world? How do you make a rainbow, God? Like, it's just beautiful, you know? So definitely it's built my faith.
That was so incredible. Honestly, that nearly made me emotional. It's so encouraging to just hear you talk like that. What advice then would you personally give to someone that is maybe going through a similar situation that you came through. Maybe in two sort of questions, you know, the first way, maybe the struggle with social media and Pole and how they want to portray that. And the second sort of type of people, maybe someone that struggles with the connection between faith or Christianity and Pole and how that balance happens, really.
From the social media standpoint, I think everyone has to get to a place where they are in control of their own lives. You know, especially I'm talking about adults, you know, 18 and up. Like, this is your life. You know, what do you want to do with it? And if you want an Instagram account, go for it. You know, that's your right. Those are your choices to make. If you know what you're doing is right, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. You're not breaking law, you're not being indecent exposure, whatever. Then who's to judge you for your choices and that you're making, because you're not doing anything wrong. As long as you know that in your heart, that like the things that you're doing are up and up, there's nothing to hide and nothing to be ashamed of. Like, go for it, get an account. But I also think making the account should be for you. You know, it shouldn't be for pleasing other people or because someone wants you to do it. You know, you need to make up your own mind that you're going to do this for you. I know a lot of people who use Instagram just for almost like a file system. You know, like, I want to post on an account so that I'm not taking up tons of amount of storage on my phone. And then you go to Instagram and that's like your library of all these things you've learned along your pole journey. Some people just use Instagram for that. And it's very private. You know, it's only for themselves and a couple people that they want to publish for. So you're certainly capable of that, or you can have everything you want out there and make it completely public. That's going to be your choice. And then remind me the other question was about
advice to someone that is maybe struggling with the connection with faith and pole dance and how they see that connecting, really.
Yeah, I think again that comes down to a personal choice. I feel like it's a heart issue. So if I can stand before God and know that what I'm doing is glorifying him, then I have nothing to feel guilty about. If I feel like what I'm doing is wrong, then I'm going to have a really hard time going before God and feeling, you know, that I'm up and up. I mean, I think it comes down to the heart. And if you know 100% that like what you're doing, there is nothing wrong with what you're doing, which is pole dancing, then you're going to please God and you're going to glorify him. Yeah. But if for some reason in your heart, you feel like what you're doing is shameful or wrong or dirty, something like that, then that's going to really break you and your relationship with God. So I know 100% the things that I do when I pole dance are glorifying God because he made me for this. This is my gift. This is my talent. This is my ability. These are my skills. We all have been given gifts on this earth to use for God's glory. That's what it all comes down to. So if you feel like what you're doing is honoring God with gifts and abilities and skills and talents, and that everything that you're doing is on the up and up, then there's nothing that should keep you from being 100% there. Does that make sense?
Definitely. You just, I love the way you speak with such conviction that you know in your heart that you're at peace. You know, how did you find that peace? You know, what were you doing to finally come to accept these things?
I think that just comes down to prayer, and I ask God every day, like, okay, God, here I am. Like, what do you want to do with my life? Like, where are you going to lead me today? Mm-hmm. And if you just keep walking every day of your life going, okay, God, where do you want me to be? Where do you want me to go? And walking one foot in front of the other, he's going to lead you, like wherever that might lead you. It might lead you to something else. It's not pole dancing. But if you just walk and wake up and say, okay, God, where do you want to lead me? Where do you want me to go? And I have my ears open, my eyes open. And if I'm trying to live my life in a way that glorifies him, then I want him to lead me along those paths. And so, you know, going to church, going to a Bible study, being in a small group with other fellow believers, praying in the word, living by the word, not just reading it, but like obeying it and applying it to your life, loving others and loving God are the two biggest things that we're called to do is love God, the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And if we're living that way in this life that we've been given, the few days we have here, and you let him lead you and guide you, I think you can be 100% sure. You know, and then when you do something wrong, then you just ask like, oh my gosh, God, I did that wrong and that was mean, or I said something I shouldn't have said, or I wasn't thinking about the other person's feelings here, forgive me. And then you just move on because God forgives you.
Mhm.
You know, if you walk that way in a way that glorifies him and is being faithful to this, just those two commandments alone, you don't have to get overly complicated and read through the whole Bible to know those are the main two commandments that we have. I think you can live your life knowing that you're walking with the Lord and you're living the life you should be living.
And I know this is going to be so encouraging for some people to listen to this, and whether even they're Christian or have a faith themselves, I know it will really inspire them that you've come with such peace of mind and you've gone through a journey yourself. So I know a lot of people will feel very encouraged listening to this. My sort of final question, which I like to try and ask everyone that I interview, is challenging the spin is obviously trying to address the misconceptions in pole dance. And we're sort of addressing a major one here, that is, you can have a faith or be a Christian and still pole dance. Are there any misconceptions that you've maybe came across in pole dance or even in your personal life that you think needs to be addressed?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one is just that there are more dimensions to pole dancing than just stripping. You know, if you tell someone off the street you're a pole dancer, they're going to put in their mind that you're a stripper. And so I think it's super misconception because there are so many layers to pole dancing and people don't realize that. Like you can actually pole dance for fitness. There's a thing called pole fitness. So people are starting to learn that there is pole fitness now. So now you can actually use a vertical silver bar to exercise. And so that's starting to become more acceptable. There's also the sports side. So I don't think people realize that pole is actually up for the Olympics right now. They're going through a review process and it might be in the next Olympics. So once I think that pole sport hits Olympic level, it will blow people's minds. And I think the misconception about pole being just a stripper will totally be solved. That problem will be solved because they'll see how incredible this sport is. And it's up there with gymnastics and rhythmic gymnastics and every other sport in the world that's in the Olympics. So it will get recognition there. But when I tell people pole is a sport, they're like, I don't understand. Like they just look at me like, I don't understand. And I'm like, well, if you looked online, if you open up a YouTube channel and it says, if you just type in pole sport organization, world of pole sport, so forth, you'll see that this is such an unbelievably reputable and challenging sport. And then that will, change the misconceptions as well. Yeah, I mean, that's been my biggest thing. And I almost feel like in a way I was meant for this role because I remember when cheerleading, I was a cheerleader in high school and I was doing the sports side and the competitive side. And they were throwing me up in the air and we were doing these huge stunts. But at the time, people thought cheerleaders were just these little girls who put on these cute skirts and showed people their butts and did these jumps and did these cheers. And it was like when I was starting cheer, it was like serious. And so now look at cheerleading, right? Like people look at cheerleading and they put their daughters in cheerleading at 4. Why? Because people see that it's this reputable sport that you can actually start really early on. They end up going to cheer competitions. You can go to college and do cheerleading. There's this whole recognition now that cheerleading is an established sport. And people don't argue about cheerleading being a competitive sport. But when I was growing up, it was because it wasn't that common and it wasn't known and understood, right? But I think that the same thing is going to happen with pole. I really do, in a very similar way of my cheer journey. Like when I started, it was just sexy, shake your butt. But now it's this incredible world. Everyone knows across the world in the pole world that it's a world champion sport and people are doing incredible things with their bodies. And I hope that we get there. I really do. I think once we're in the Olympics and once people see it, that we'll get there and the misconception will be gone.
I would love to see it in the Olympics because honestly, even the pain alone, never mind the strength that it requires, the bruises. I always, when a few of my friends have started pole dance, just from me talking about it and stuff, and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize the bruises that you would get and the pain.
It's so true.
They even just how you walk around the pole and how you grip it, like you don't think of the difficulties of all and how you make it look so graceful while you're in pain as well.
True. You don't think that it's that hard until you take your first class.
Exactly. But no, that's all the questions that I have for today. I think we had a really meaningful conversation. I think it was really important to have this as well. And that it'll definitely touch and inspire a lot of people and hopefully even encourage them to give it a go as well. Is there any other final words or anything to maybe the audience or whoever might be listening?
Well, I would just say if you've never taken a pole class, sign up, take one. If you know people who are pole dancers, tell them how awesome they are.
Love it. Definitely.
It's such a fun sport, and I'm honestly privileged that you asked me to be on this show, and I am grateful to tell my story and to inspire others. And I just say, go pole dancers.
No, thank you so much for being so willing to do it as well. As I said, you're a big inspiration to me, so I really appreciate it.